Sam Neill, Rutger Hauer, Miranda Richardson, Martin Short, and too many other people to name. I never sat down and actually did a review on this, so I just rewatched it. Merlin from 1998. It was a two-part miniseries for television. Oddly enough, this two-part miniseries is one of my favorite versions of the Merlin story. When I was at college, getting towards the end of my college years, I had this thing on videotape. I had taped it off TV while I watched it and kept it around until the tracking was completely distorted. I think I still had it when I finally gave up the ghost, pardon the expression, and got rid of my VCR and the remaining tapes. I watched that thing so many times over the years. Finally, I was reminded of it by something I don't remember that I saw online, and so I went and looked it up and found that you could buy it at least through Amazon, and so I have it streaming now through Amazon. Merlin, when I first heard about it, it seemed like a really fascinating why you get this big ensemble cast to do this story and how you would do it focused on Merlin and have it yet be about the King Arthur stories. There's been a lot of things recycled in the more digital era recent years of that story, but it was really unique. I mean, we had seen the movie Excalibur back in the early 80s, which I think I saw it once, but it was confusing and really drawn out and far too medieval by aesthetic to be appropriate. We saw the really horrible Arthur movie with Keira Knightley and, what was the guy's name? That was just horrendously terrible. I mean, when you get that much of the history wrong when you're trying to update it for newer discoveries and then don't, other than one vague reference to the Sarmatian Knights and Rome, it was awful. But with the Sam Neill two-part Merlin miniseries, watched it over 2 nights, and now I have it. What an amazing job they did of giving you as much of the history as we plausibly know. They don't go into detail about King Constant or any mention of his relationship with Rome, but they also capture all of the fantasy elements really well, or the mythological elements really well, using the technology available at the time. And they tie in together a very good story of a nation emerging from the Dark Age, or rather the building of what will be the English nation or Great Britain or the UK or whatever form it is now that you're focused on, to go from the tribes of the Angles and all those tribes of the Scots and the Saxon invasion. And they reference this period of darkness, again, without going into details of the fall of the Roman Empire, which precipitated it. They nevertheless present it in passing. King Constant being the first Christian king of Britain, they call him, but really of the Angles, as his history would play it out. Giving us the full backstory on Uther, not giving us an abbreviated one where Arthur suddenly appears and pulls a sword out of a stone, or we get a 5-minute preamble or prologue that leads to the bulk of it being about Arthur, by having it be about the life of Merlin, who's trapped in this transition between the pagan past and the Christian present future, this transition between the religions. He's caught up in this conflict between these belief systems, which includes in it things like the fall of Rome, which was Christian by its fall. And so Christianity and civilization now being weaved together in this way versus the old ways that were perhaps less civilized, but more British, less Roman. Again, they capture all of this without going into long soliloquies about it in any fashion. And yet you get this great character of Merlin, why he's created, where he plays out in the transition, why he's important. And so we get the famous wizard character and all of the details of that story. And we get to see the history of Uther, Arthur, and Mordred, and all of that unfold sort of through the eyes of Arthur and Arthur's life and experience. I can't even put into words. I am not, there's a lot of comedians out there that cross over to drama and people love them. And, you know, Steve Martin, honestly, I was never a big Steve Martin. I'm never a big Chevy Chase fan. I loved the Three Amigos, but a lot of these folks that people just love, Bill Murray, just, I don't know why, they're just not my bag, man. And then Martin Short, you know, Martin Short having a major role. Martin Short as the gnome Frick. He deserves an award for that in this miniseries. I mean, he, other than Sam Neill himself, maybe even more so, that would be a toss-up. He is just outstanding in this movie. He's outstanding, and he himself gives such flavor to the story as Frick, the gnome who's loyal to Queen Mab. He's involved in her devious plots, but he's never as evil as her, and how ultimately he ends up, you know, there's that moment that brings a tear to your eye by the end, where he has lost Morgan Le Fay, the love of his life, and have been abandoned by Mab for calling her out about her wickedness. And Frick is now a hideous gnome marching into battle with the armies of Arthur, fighting on the side of right, he says, which is worse. You know, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then at the very end, many years later, elderly, they're both still alive. They find each other and how they're Arthur and Frick are friends. But Martin Short's performance in this was just absolutely amazing. Like I said, I had never really cared for him. I found him kind of irritating, even in The Three Amigos, which is a great movie, even though none of those guys stood out for me as, oh yeah, I've got to see it because they're in it. It was a great movie. But Martin Short was kind of, his shtick was being kind of awkward and annoying. And I don't know, I never thought that, when I saw he was in this, I was like, huh. But he is amazing in this, and you really get the idea of what a great actor he is. I got new appreciation for him out of it. And Sam Neill, who was, you know, great in Jurassic Park. He'd been in Hunt for Red October, but it wasn't a major part of the plot. I mean, he was a main character, but he was not the main protagonist by any means. But they really do an outstanding job of it. And Martin Short, it sort of set up for when I did finally see Mars Attacks. I thought seeing him play the greasy pervert that worked at the White House, and that again was like, wow, he's got acting range and is entertaining in a lot of different settings, which I had not realized. Miranda Richardson as Mab does a fabulous job. I mean, you could talk all day about Rutger Hauer's achievements and things he's been in that are wonderful, but they do such a job of putting together the Merlin story, giving us Uther, Arthur, giving us Mab, the Lady of the Lake, not trying to make it too realistic and tie in too much real history that then makes you guessing at what this mythos was about and adding in too much stuff. They gave us just as much as they could give us of real history, and were not ashamed to give us a dragon, to give us a Lady of the Lake, to give us those pagan religious / mythological elements that you needed to have. And being willing to deal with the transition without being preachy for or against of a culture that was transitioning from one religion to another as Christianity was spreading. So I had rented that, I bought that so that I can stream it whenever, and I've already watched it twice. It was sort of part of my Christmas present to myself, and I can't say enough good stuff about it. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I know it's streaming at least at Amazon Prime. Merlin, Sam Neill, Miranda Richardson, Martin Short, Rutger Hauer, John Gielgud, a host of others that I'll forget. So just go check it out. Great movie, and we will see you here next time, and peace and long life.